Hello, everyone. My name is Rashid Ali, and I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant from Ontario, Canada. Today, I will be sharing some important updates on Canadian immigration, including the latest express entry draws, provincial nomination news, work permit realities, and IRCC's newest processing time reports. We'll also take a closer look at the opportunities for early childhood educators and skilled trades professionals because these sectors are right at the heart of Canada's labor market needs. Let's go through them one by one. And as always, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat as we go along. I'll do my best to answer them towards the end. Okay, let's start by taking a quick look at the latest Express Entry PNP draw. Only 228 invitations went out, but remember, these are provincial nominees, and because a PNP gives you that 600-point boost, that's why PNP draws always show such high cutoffs. That's why the score is 746. The real takeaway here is that the provinces are playing a bigger and bigger role in shaping who actually gets through express entry. Even when the draw sizes are small, provinces are shaping who gets in. That's a huge shift away from Ottawa only control, federal government's control. And speaking of express entry, the other big news this past week, was about education professionals. And this is a lot more exciting for mid range candidates. Canada has just held its first education focused draw in over 4 months. They sent out 2,500 invitations with a CRS cutoff or 462. This is significantly lower than the general draws, meaning more candidates with mid level scores got a shot. And the focus was on in demand occupations such as early childhood educators and elementary and secondary school teachers. That tells us that immigration is being tailored directly to labor market shortages, especially childcare. And childcare is huge. With the $10 a day program rolling out across Canada, provinces are trying to find trained educators. Alberta, especially, has flagged this as a crisis area. And this was expected. If you remember the last live I did, this was expected that a big round of invites for education category will occur soon and the scores will drop. So, but going in the future, I don't see a lot of draws in the education category happening this year. But this could be a great opportunity for next year. So, quick question for everyone in the chat. Do you think targeting educators in immigration is a smart move, or should Canada keep focusing on healthcare and tech? And right about now, you might be wondering who exactly are early childhood educators and what does it take to work as an early childhood educator in Canada? So, let me explain it briefly. So, So basically, ECEs are professionals who guide early learning for children from infants up to preschool. They typically work in licensed centers, preschools, and kindergartens. And while Express Entry doesn't require you to be certified to qualify, to actually work as an ECE in Canada, you usually need at least a 1 to 2 year diploma, registration with a provincial authority like Ontario College of Early Childhood Educators, and things like first aid, CPR, and background checks. And the biggest reason why demand is rising is because of this federal government's $10 a day childcare program that I was just mentioning, which was rolled out earlier. Alberta and other provinces are already struggling to hire enough educators. In fact, the shortage is projected to be uh, it's projected to last well into the 2030s, so for many more years into the future. And that's why ECEs are now being directly targeted in express entry. If you want a more detailed explanation of what ECEs are, what kind of license you need, I've written two full blogs on my website about ECE licensing, salaries, immigration pathways. The links should be in the description of the video when this gets posted, and I recommend that you check them out later. Another big express entry news comes in the form of trades occupation draw. IRCC held the first ever express entry draw for trade occupations in over a year. They issued 1,250 invitations, but the CRS cutoff was very high at 505 because there hadn't been a trades draw since October of last year. And because of that, the candidate pool built up and competition spiked. The good news is that IRCC has signaled that they expect to issue about 3,300 ITAs for trades in the second half of this year. That means that there are roughly still 2,000 more spots coming before the year ends. So if you're in the trades, whether that's construction, industrial, electrical, this is a strong signal that Canada still sees your skills as essential, even in a year when immigration levels overall have been tightened. Moving on to the provinces, Alberta has been very active. In just over a week, they ran 7 different draws, inviting nearly 1,900 people across healthcare, construction, and general streams. Alberta is signaling that it immediately wants newcomers. Healthcare and construction, they remain the top priorities, but with almost 900 invites through Alberta Opportunity Stream, the province is also keeping pathways open for a broader pool of workers. And that push connects directly to the next update, which is Alberta's nomination allocation for 2025 for this year. The province's allocation was bumped up to 6,403 spots. That's higher than earlier this year, though still lower than last year's levels. Provinces across Canada are lobbying Ottawa for more spots, and it looks like Ottawa is listening. The challenge, though, is balance. More newcomers help the labor market, but housing and services are already stretched thin. That's the tension that policymakers are wrestling with, and that's why you see fewer spots. Moving on to Eastern Canada, Newfoundland and Labrador held its ninth selection round of 2025 on September 12th, and it was a big one. They issued a total of 353 ITAs through 2 different immigration programs, 218 invitations under the NLPNP, and 135 invitations under the AIP, Atlantic Immigration Program. And what's really interesting is that this draw marks the largest number of AI specific invitations issued by Newfoundland this year. Newfoundland and Labrador switched to an expression of interest system earlier this year. That means that it's no more first come, first served. Instead, you must submit an EOI profile, and the province invites candidates whose skills match its labor market priorities. And those priorities right now include healthcare, IT, and aquaculture. The province's nomination allocation for 2025 was also bumped up to 2,050 spaces, almost double what it was originally. Now, this next one is interesting and a little political. Recently, headlines claim that Canada handed out 105,000 temporary foreign worker permits, but when you look at the real numbers, only about 33,700 new workers actually arrived. And that's not all. Temporary resident numbers are down 50% overall. So instead of overshooting, the government is actually staying on track with its reduction plan. This is one of those times where the narrative doesn't quite match the data. And let me ask you, do you think Canada should keep cutting temporary resident numbers this sharply, or is that going to hurt industries already short on workers? Drop your thoughts in the chat. All right, now let's talk about processing times, the part that really impacts people's lives. Some good news first. Some good news first. Study permits inside Canada have improved, cut down from 12 weeks to about 6 weeks to process. But the rest isn't that positive. Work permits inside Canada are still way beyond the 120-day standard, running more than 6 months. So while IRCC is making some great gains, it's clear that families and in Canada workers are the ones paying the price for these backlogs. That wraps up that wraps up this bi-weekly update. If you need my help with your application, feel free to schedule a call with me using this link or by scanning the QR code. And finally, let's see if you have any questions that I can answer. So on Instagram, there is a question: Is what is the next education draw prediction? My score was just only one less in last week's draw. My score is 461. So I think because there were about 3,000 spots for the education category, I don't see the score dropping a lot in the future draws of this year. But next year's draws could be a different story. Okay, so there's a question from Usama. You worked in construction in Toronto for 3 years. Do you have a chance to get Canadian PR? And he also says, I've seen so many citizens and permanent residents quit the country. They need to fill them spots. So, Sama, it really depends what kind of construction roles. As you know, overall, the construction trades are in demand, especially in Ontario, and you are a resident of Ontario. But but it all depends on what your exact experience was, how many points you're scoring in OINP. I do see a lot of construction people getting invited through OINP, but again, it depends on your circumstances. You plaster drywall, tier three. Yeah, I do think you should have a good chance. You do have a very in-demand occupation these days, but you also have to look at the other scoring factors within OINP. And I think if you have an employer, a potential employer who is supportive, for example, if they can support you through the OINP job offer foreign worker stream, you should have a much higher likelihood of success. Okay. Is there any other question? Any update for the Ukrainian program? That's a question. I don't have any update for you today on that. Okay, you're on Canada on a work permit. You need to change PR. So I do have a video on the Kuwait program where I list down many potential options that you can go through. Maybe have a look at that video on my YouTube channel. It might be helpful. If not, feel free to schedule a call and maybe we can discuss in more detail. Is there any other question on any of the socials? Okay, I think that wraps it up for today. Thank you so much for your time. And again, if you need any help, feel free to schedule a call with me. My information should be in the description. And if you prefer to receive these updates through a newsletter instead of a video, you can subscribe to my newsletter on the website. That way, all the important news gets delivered right in your inbox. Thank you so much. Take care.